us on the program. We now move over to the United States, where US President Donald Trump's administration has ordered US embassies around the world to stop scheduling appointments for student visas. This comes as the US prepares to expand social media vetting of applicants. An official memo said social media vetting would be stepped up for student and foreign exchange visas, which would have significant implications for embassies and consulates. It comes during a wide-ranging Trump crackdown on some of America's most elite universities. He sees these institutions as too left-wing, accusing them of failing to combat anti-Semitism when pro-Palestinian protests have unfolded on campuses. Meanwhile, responding to the move, China called on the US to protect international students. Let's take a listen.
我们注意到有关动向，中方一贯认为，正常的教育合作和学术交流不应当受到干扰。我们敦促美方切实保障包括中国留学生在内的各国留学生的合法正当权。
As per reports, the Trump administration had already enhanced its vetting of student social media in March, which linked the move to a broader crackdown of pro-Palestinian demonstrations on campuses. Harvard University has been the focal point of this. He has frozen $2.65 billion in federal grants to the institution and has sought to push other federal funding worth over $100 million under review. The university's president has said the cuts will hurt the country, not just Harvard, because academics were conducting research deemed high priority by the government. We're now joined by Raymond Vickery, who is the former US Assistant Secretary of Commerce located in Washington, D.C. Thank you very much, Raymond, for joining us on the program. What message does this send to the global academic community, Raymond? I mean, this has obviously been an ongoing situation, particularly between the Trump administration and Harvard, but now, do you think the US is closing its doors to academic foreign talent?
Well, thanks very much for having me. I think the message which it sends is very negative, of course, and it indicates that there is a sea change in terms of the executive branch of the United States government in its attitude toward having the best and brightest from throughout the world come to the United States for education. This has been one of the foremost positive points in our system. Great talent from all over the world for scientific research, for inquiries, for knowledge creation across the board. And the message has to be that that's no longer a priority for the United States. The priority really is for the executive branch and for President Trump a control of power and the crushing of opposition. I think make no mistake about this, this is not a struggle over whether or not there's anti-Semitism, whether or not there is the proper treatment of diversity, equity, and inclusion. What it is a power struggle, and one of the chief fulcrums of opposition to President Trump and his supporters has been in higher education, in universities and college. And this is no surprise, because under the United States Constitution, the values of free speech, freedom of thought, are foremost in the foundation of institutions of higher learning. And this is the same for great democracies throughout the world, whether they be India, Canada, and Europe, Japan, any place you have freedom of thought, freedom of speech, unlike in China or Russia, you are going to attract those who think for themselves and do not necessarily accept the ideology of those in charge. And that's what's going on here. And the attempt is to break those institutions of higher learning. And if you can break Harvard, which has been a chief target, then presumably all the other targets which you have, whether it be Columbia University, Johns Hopkins, the Ivy League schools, Duke, wherever, that they will fall in line. And so that's what's going on. And the values, as I say, of attracting the best and the brightest in order to have mutual benefit in terms of progress in science, literature, the liberal arts, that's all out the window in the United States executive branch. So the question now is, of course, where do you go from here? And what will the courts do, and whether or not there will be a standing up to this power grab, this fight for power that Donald Trump and his supporters are putting forward.
Raymond, the First Amendment of the US Constitution protects fundamental freedoms. Okay, one of them is supposed to be protecting the freedom of speech. This is obviously widely known. We've seen riots we've seen pro-white riots in Charlottesville in the past and all over the United States. Trump has cited anti-Semitism for this crackdown of U.S. universities. What is your view on this? Do you think this is an infringement on the U.S. Constitution and the First Amendment rights?
There's no question about it. It's an infringement. The anti-Semitism is a smokescreen for the power struggle which is going on. It's not really a question of anti-Semitism. It's not really a question of diversity, equity, and inclusion, which are cited. And of course, there are reforms that need to be done. We have to be constantly opposing those anti-Semitic perspectives and the perspectives which are against fundamental rights, human rights. But that's not what is happening here. The attack is on the First Amendment. Donald Trump, the President Trump, has shown no respect for the Constitution. In other areas, he says that in spite of the plain words, that perhaps he could have a third term. He has said birthright citizenship. And the attack on the First Amendment is a part of that. And of course, the institutions of higher learning, universities, colleges, wherever they have been throughout the democratic world, have been chief proponents of those rights, including freedom of the press and what happens there. Well, that is not what an authoritarian wants to see happen. And it's a very serious proposition. The courts are going to have to be initial deciders, and that'll go up to the Supreme Court, where Donald Trump has conservatives that he has appointed. But even they point out that John Roberts and other members of the Supreme Court went to Harvard Law School, as did I. I have a hard time believing that they are going to go down the line with President Trump on these. Then the question becomes, will our system hold? Because the courts don't have any independent police. They don't have any authority over troops, measures to enforce their rulings. And the really frightening part about the Trump approach to universities, and of course the business about keeping out foreign students, is basically to deprive these universities of the economic wherewithal. The question will become, what happens in enforcing the court's decisions. And that would be unprecedented if the executive branch would refuse to enforce those. But that could happen. The ultimate solution, of course, will have to be elections, but elections, unfortunately, for one who knows no bounds in terms of attacking the Constitution, can be set up and changed. So we're in a very difficult position. We need the support of democracies around the world, India, Canada, Europe, at this time, because the United States system is in real trouble, and we will have to work our way through this. I have every expectation that we will be able to do it, but how serious it will become before we're able to do it as we have in the past is anybody's guess, and requires eternal vigilance as the price of freedom.
Raymond Vickery, thank you very much for joining us and for your insight. It's always a pleasure. Well, that is all we